WADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Abuja. Good afternoon, and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. The Malian Transitional Authority extends by 6 months an asset freeze for several members of rebel groups in the country. Ghana's National Economic Dialogue ends with recommendations to, among others, stabilize the macroeconomy.
We would like the minister to review the fiscal regime in the extractive sector. The extractive sector can be a central element of our effort to rapidly improve public sector revenue generation.
Civil society and student unions condemn the closure of public schools in northern state of Nigeria in the wake of Ramadan.
If you look at the Muslim countries all over the world, from Saudi Arabia to Egypt to Kuwait to Qatar, there's nothing like Ramadan holidays as part of a religious holiday. And I don't think this holiday is going to necessarily be useful to these children because they will be missing a lot.
And Liberia's President Boakai orders a thorough investigation into all reported cases of homicide in the country. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Abdullahi Hassan with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and welcome to our listeners within and outside the sub-region. This edition of Newslink begins with Mali, where the government is extending the freeze on the assets of several members of armed groups in the northern region. The measure is valid for 6 months and aims to dismantle the funding structures of the groups operating on Malian territory. Francis Boniface tells us more.
The new measures was announced on Tuesday in a decree signed by Mali's Minister of Economy and Finance. According to the decree, the assets freeze of members of the FLA, the Azawad Liberation Front, and other groups extends for 6 months. The ministerial order concerns Iyad Ashgali, leader of the Islamic and Muslim Support Group. It also targets other individuals including Amadou Kufa, leader of the Masina Katiba, and leaders of the Azawad Liberation Front. Bamako justifies these sanctions on charges of terrorism, financing terrorism, illegal possession of weapons, undermining national security, and criminal association. Arrest warrants have been issued for these individuals, all of whom are considered terrorists by the Malian authorities. This new measure comes at a time when discussions are reportedly underway between the JNIM and the FLA. The two rebel groups are considering joining forces to control the northern region of Mali.
Francis Boniface reporting there. Here in Senegal, following the government's promise to prosecute former President Macky Sall, MPs will vote on March 10 on a bill to transfer prisoners from Morocco, where former Senegalese President Sall now lives. For the first time in its history, Senegal could try a former president for his management of the country. And what could be the outcome of this new political judicial affair? Jean-Charles Biagui, a research professor in political science at the Sheikh Anta Diop University in Dakar, provides analysis.
He's indeed been accused of many things, including falsifying economic data. He is also accused of irregularities in the management of public finances. From my point of view, there are serious grounds for holding the President of the Republic to account. Is this realistic? For the moment, perhaps not, since he is not in Senegal and it is not clear that he can be extradited. For the moment, it may not be realistic. But here again, we are in the field of foreign policy, with interests that may converge but may also clash. Senegalese diplomacy will probably get involved if the Senegalese authorities decide to try him. But it's not easy. Above all, once again, Senegalese law itself, the conscience of Senegal, gives so much power to the President of the Republic that he is irresponsible. He can only be prosecuted for high treason. But as I revealed earlier, high treason is a catch-all concept that is not very precise. Under Senegalese law, you can put whatever you want into it and prosecute the present President of the Republic. Now, will we be able to get our hands on him? That's another matter, because Senegal and Morocco have very important relations. From my point of view, this goes beyond the person of the former head of state.
That was Professor Jean-Charles Bagui, a researcher at the Political Science Department of the Sheikh Anta Diop University. Meanwhile, the Rally of Senegalese Workers, a new collective launched at the beginning of the week, is protesting against the waves of redundancies that have been taking place for several months in the public sector. Some 3,000 people have lost their jobs, according to the organization, whose members say they are being targeted by the new authorities who want to get rid of supporters of former President Macky Sall and people recruited during his term in office. The people concerned worked at the port of Dakar, in ministries or in public agencies such as the Management Society of Promotion and the Senegalese National Lottery Commission. Elsewhere in Ghana, the National Economic Dialogue wrapped up yesterday after 2 days of intensive deliberations on what should be the most practicable roadmap to economic recovery. Participants at the forum outlined some solutions and recommendations contained in a communique at the close of the event in Accra. Among them is the restoration of macroeconomic stability. Etisu completes the story.
Beyond the restoration of macroeconomic stability, the recommendations contained in the communique issued at the end of the National Economic Dialogue held from 3rd to 4th March 2025 include achieving inclusive and sustainable growth and promoting private sector-led growth. They also call for governance and accountability to be strengthened. Leslie Dwight-Mensah, a financial analyst, presented the recommendations on behalf of the group on Tuesday during the closing event.
We would like the minister to review the fiscal regime in the extractive sector, to increase the revenue to the public sector from that industry. We believe that the extractive sector can be a central element of our effort to rapidly improve public sector revenue generation.
Also in attendance was Ghana's Vice President, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, who expressed great hopes that all that have been agreed on will bring the needed positive outcomes.
The dialogue has underscored the urgency of restoring confidence in our economy by maintaining macroeconomic stability, steadying inflation, strengthening our currency, and creating fiscal policies to support long-term sustainable growth, and of course also to align our policies with fiscal discipline and sound economic management.
Additionally, participants recommended developing a regulatory framework for political party financing to promote transparency. The dialogue closed with a strong appeal for urgent and decisive action as stakeholders underscored the importance of unity and collaboration, ensuring the successful implementation of these reforms.
Eche Atiso reporting there.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Remember, we're live on wadr.org and on Facebook, WADR English Service. Let's now take you to Nigeria, where 4 state governors in the northern region have been given a 72-hour ultimatum to revise a recent directive in the education sector. The National Association of Nigerian Students issued the ultimatum following the closure of public schools by state governors of Kano, Katsina, Kebbi, and Bauchi in the wake of Ramadan. The decision was not entirely welcomed by civil society, academics, and concerned stakeholders. WADR's Usman Umar reports.
The National Association of Nigerian Students issued the ultimatum to the governors of Kano, Katsina, Bauchi, and Kebbi states, condemning the recent decision to declare vacations in public schools for the Ramadan period. The student body described the move as a flagrant violation of students' rights and called for its immediate reversal. The Christian Association of Nigeria is calling for dialogue involving religious leaders, educators, and parents to reassess the policy. However, some Islamic groups, including the Muslim Rights Concern, have rejected the criticisms, insisting that the break is justified and culturally appropriate. Nigeria's laws grant the state governors the authority to manage schools in consultation with the Federal Ministry of Education. However, concerns remain about the broader impact on education in northern Nigeria, a region already grappling with low literacy levels due to poverty, insecurity, and cultural practices. Speaking on the matter, Awal Musa Rafsanjani, the executive director of the Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, had this to say to Channels Television.
If you look at the Muslim countries all over the world, from Saudi Arabia to Egypt to Kuwait to Qatar to Oman to Iran, there's nothing like Ramadan holidays, as part of a religious holiday. And I don't think this holiday is going to necessarily be useful to these children because they will be missing a lot. In Kano, where this has also been declared, some schools are still operating. I think the school authorities should approach government to show that importance on why children should continue to be in school.
As of Tuesday evening, the governors of Bauchi, Kano, Katsina and Kebbi had yet to respond to the growing criticism. Among these states, only Kano has a relatively high literacy rate of 74.3%, according to the National Bureau of Statistics 2024 Living Standards Survey. The other three states have significantly lower literacy levels, raising concerns about the impact of prolonged school closures. Nigeria already faces an education crisis, with 10.2 million children of primary school age and 8.1 million of junior secondary school age currently out of school. Education advocates warn that decisions like this could further worsen the situation, especially in the northern region. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Liberia's President Joseph Boakai has mandated a comprehensive investigation into cases of disappearances and deaths of senior government officials. President Boakai, at the first cabinet meeting, emphasized his administration's commitment to delivering meaningful results and underscored the importance of accountability. He therefore directed law enforcement agencies to expedite investigations by collaborating with international partners to ensure progress. As WADR's Abraham Parker reports, the public will be updated on the findings under the executive order.
The scope of the investigation remains ambiguous, with indications suggesting a focus on cases reported on the immediate past administration. Notably, incidents include the mysterious death of Matthew Innes, a deputy director at the Central Bank of Liberia, who was found dead in a hit-and-run incident in 2019, and two officials from the Liberia Revenue Authority, Gifty Laman and Abbott Peters. They were discovered deceased in a vehicle on Broad Street after their families reported them missing in 2020. Since then, several lifeless bodies, including those of senior government officials, have been recovered on the streets of the capital city. During his first cabinet meeting of the year, President Boakai stated that his administration will not tolerate impunity, vying to pursue justice for the deceased and their families.
The system can handle them, those missing children. Let the public know what happened.
In addition to the investigation, Boakai outlined his administration's priorities, focusing on economic development, infrastructure, employment, and governance issues.
We cannot negotiate forever. The people need jobs. Don't tell me because you want to do it perfectly. We have to create jobs.
Reacting to the president's call for renewed investigations, some Liberians believe the decision brings a sense of hope to those who have suffered losses.
Even though I know there are other challenges, but these are things that we expected.
For me, it's a very fun thing. We just want that what he started, it should end.
Reawakening those cases, I think, is okay.
For many observers, President Boakai's commitment to address these unresolved cases marks a significant step towards fostering a culture of accountability and justice in Liberia. For Newslink on WADR, I'm Abraham Parker in Monrovia.
And away from Liberia, let's now take you to the Gambia, where the National Assembly has ratified the mutual visa exemption agreement for diplomat and service holders between the Gambia and United Arab Emirates, UAE. The agreement is meant to strengthen bilateral ties between the two countries. From Banjul, Sankule Janko has more.
This agreement means Emiratis holding diplomatic, special, service and ordinary passports, which are still valid for a period of not less than 6 months, can enter, depart and transit through the Gambia without an entry visa and free of charge, and to stay for a maximum period of 90 days. On the other hand, only Gambians holding diplomatic and service passports valid for a period of not less than 6 months to enter, depart and transit through the territory of UAE without an entry visa and free of charge, and to stay for a maximum period of 90 days. During the session, members debated on why ordinary Emiratis should be given free entry, while this applies to only Gambians with diplomatic and service passports.
We are diplomatic passport holders today, but tomorrow we are going to be ordinary passport holders as well. Somebody else will have diplomatic passport and be sitting in this house. So the issue is about diplomacy between Gambia and UAE. They can consider ordinary passports as well.
What we are saying, Mr. Speaker, is we need to add the process of reciprocity. We are not saying it shouldn't be approved, but the act should be equal.
However, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Gambians abroad, Momodu Tangara, defended this agreement.
We are on a track where we are trying to attract investment. You have many other countries that we are partners with, and there are other countries who have made the request and they did not have this with the UAE. And these are countries that have even more resources than the Gambia.
The agreement, which will come into force 30 days from the date of endorsement, was eventually approved by National Assembly members. For Newslink West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sankuli Janki reporting from Banjul.
You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide at wadr.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. The Malian Transitional Authority extends by 6 months an asset freeze for several members of rebel groups in the country. Ghana's National Economic Dialogue ends with recommendations to, among others, stabilize the macroeconomy. Civil society and student unions condemn the closure of public schools in northern state of Nigeria in the wake of Ramadan. Liberia's President Boakai orders a thorough investigation into all reported cases of homicide. Still ahead in the news, we have the press review, guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Thank you for staying with us. In Côte d'Ivoire, the first edition of the National Employment and Recruitment Fair kicked off on Tuesday and will run until Friday at the Cultural Palace in Abidjan, offering young people nearly 50,000 opportunities. This initiative, supported by the Ivorian Ministry for the Promotion of Youth, Professional Integration and Civic Service, aims to recruit, finance and train young people seeking professional integration. The meeting will be attended by recruiters, companies, placement agencies, training institutions, and financing bodies. Here is Albinade's report, voiced by Christopher Ticho.
Inside the Cultural Palace, young people looking for job form a long queue. With curriculum vitae in hand, they are all hoping to get an interview with one of the 146 recruitment agencies on site. While they wait to be interviewed, they are already welcoming the government initiative. At the launch of this national fair dedicated to youth employment and recruitment, the Ivorian Minister for Youth, Mamadou Touré, invited young people not to miss this opportunity to try to find a job.
The challenge for the government was to bring together recruiters, companies, recruitment agencies, institutions in charge of financing projects, and young applicants. The event attracted 146 companies and recruitment agencies from across the sector.
The Ivorian government has announced that this National Employment and Recruitment Fair will be organized every quarter to provide an ongoing response to the challenges of integrating young people into workplaces. The initiative is part of the government 2023 to 2025 youth program.
Christopher Ticho, that report filed in by WADR's Abidjan correspondent Albin Ade. We'll now take you to Burkina Faso, where the government is set to benefit from a special financial program to support its agricultural sector. The initiative additionally aims to advance the country's climate risk management, back green financing, and improve population resilience. The scheme by the International Fund for Agricultural Development (IFAD) was announced on Tuesday in Ouagadougou. Imoredet reports.
IFAD announced initiative adds to Burkina Faso's recent drive to grow and sustain its agriculture and rural sectors. Bernard Hien, IFAD Regional Director for West and Central Africa, said in addition to the organization's current portfolio of 182 billion CFA francs, it is working with the Ministry of Agriculture to introduce additional financing of approximately 121 billion CFA francs by December. IFAD's new initiatives also aim to strengthen climate risk management and support green financing projects to improve the resilience of populations in the Sahel region. The regional director made these statements in Ouagadougou after meeting with the Burkinabe Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jean-Marie Traoré, on March 4, 2025. During a 48-hour working visit to Burkina Faso, he discussed with local authorities IFAD's new ambitions aimed at increasing investment in the country's agricultural and rural sectors. He also detailed the organizational strategies put in place to strengthen IFAD investments, support the country's agricultural development priorities, and promote food sovereignty. Aware of the progress made, the two parties are now considering setting up, as soon as possible, a process for the accreditation of an IFAD country director in Burkina Faso.
Imoredet with that report.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Let's shift attention to what the national dailies in the Gambia are reporting this Wednesday. Sankule Janko, it's over to you.
Welcome to this edition of the Press Review, coming to you from Banjul, the Gambia. Now, let's begin with the Standard newspaper, and it reads, Assembly votes to keep existing register of voters, rejects diaspora voting. Well, it's nothing new, because the current constitution of the Gambia does not provide any right for Gambians in the diaspora to register. Deputies, in their argument, believe that even if the election bill provides the right for Gambians abroad to vote, they will not be able to register because it is not in conformity with the constitution of the Gambia. For that being the case, the deputies decided to reject that clause which talks about diaspora Gambians registering. Dabo advises IGP to avoid being perceived to be political. Now, said Mati Jau, a renowned political science lecturer and advocate as well, says the NPP, UDP consensus needed for new constitution. He is of the view that these two must agree on terms in order for the Gambia to have an opportunity to have a new constitution. Most Gambians want death penalty to stay. That is according to Afro Barometer. Transport Union wants appointment letters for drivers. Now, let's take a look at the Point newspaper. And the Point newspaper's lead story is similar to that of the Standard newspaper. And it reads, Deputies vote against diaspora voting in Gambia election. MPs split over UAE visa exemption. However, the agreement was eventually ratified and approved. Court admits alleged PRU suitors' financial records. This other one reads, Dabo raises alarm over Gambia's 100 billion debt. Senegal retrenches 3,000 employees, 514 more to follow. Let's take a look at the final newspaper for today, and that is the Fourier newspaper. And the lead story on the Fourier newspaper reads, Low-income earners grapple with rising rent. And the final story for today reads, Gambia unveils 10-year gender policy to advocate women's rights. I'm afraid these are the major stories making headlines on Gambian dailies. It's back to you in the studio.
Sankule Janko there with the Press Review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest this afternoon is Professor Lord Mensah, a Ghanaian economist. He has been speaking with WADR's HRTC in Accra about the reflections and concerns raised at the just-ended National Economic Dialogue. He also underscored the importance of several recommendations that the current government should implement.
In Ghana, when it comes to data, there's no truth anywhere. The Ghanaian economy is in such a way that data, which is information, is quite problematic. Depending on the source where you are taking it. The IMF will give you our growth data. When you go to Bank of Ghana, they will give you a data on growth. When you go to, what do we call it? A Ghana Statistical Service, you get data on our growth. Now, there are variations in this information. And for me, the most important thing is we are growing positively. But then if you are growing positively, how does that positive growth transcend to the ordinary person? That's my headache, not the numbers. 3.5 is a huge growth. If you go to the advanced world, they're not growing to the level that, we see in Africa or the developing world. If you pick, our debt data, for instance, depends on how you capture it. Recently, the education minister made a statement and he had to correct himself. If you look at the number of students who have benefited from the free SHS, he positioned it around 5 million people, where the actual data on the grounds was around 3.5. So quickly, I had to consult, a colleague who is a senior person at the secondary level. And he told me that it depends on where the minister captured the data. If you capture the data at the entry, when the kids are coming, you may get it around 5 point something. But if you capture it for those who wrote, WASI, benefited from the free SHS and ended up writing their WASI, then it reduces to around 3.5. But then from where I sit, we need to find a way to make sure that whatever comes out in terms of our economic indicators be, one front. We shouldn't have a different data when you go to Ghana Statistical Service and then when you go to Bank of Ghana and then possibly to the point of, the political space. The two political parties are not helping the country. For me, Ghana is missing something. What is missing is, upon all the aggregated, economic numbers that we've been going back and forth on, the question is, what's the link of these numbers to our welfare, our standard of living? We have aggregated numbers like inflation, which normally directly have impact on the people's income. And myself and you, we can feel it anytime prices are going up on the market directly. However, if you talk about GDP growth, one party says they left it at 3.5. The other party says 4 point something. From where I sit, the question is, how does this GDP growth transcend into the welfare of the citizen? How does it build up into the people's pocket? How does it build up into employment? Now, let's look at a unit, increase in GDP. How does it transcend into, the ordinary man's life? Yes, that link is missing. And that is what we need to debate on. And you see, this Ghanaian economy has been growing to a point about 6%, 7%. The question is, those growths were not even creating jobs. How much more 3.5 and 4.2 that the two parties have been bantering with? So from where I sit, I think we need to find a way strategically to look at how we can reorient, the Ghanaian economy so that growth can, create jobs.
Professor Lord Mensah, a Ghanaian economist, speaking there. In the world of sports, Super Eagles head coach Eric Schell has unveiled the provisional 39-man squad ahead of the 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifiers this month. Nigeria will travel to Kigali for an encounter against Rwanda on 21 March before hosting Zimbabwe in Uyo 4 days later. Malian Schell, who unveiled his first squad list since his appointment in January, has kept faith in the core of the Super Eagles that won silver in 2023 Africa Cup of Nations in Cote d'Ivoire. Major invitees include superstars Victor Osimhen, Victor Boniface, current African Player of the Year Ademola Lookman, and Kelechi Iheanacho, among others. Also on the list are Captain William Troost-Ekong and the English Premier League duo of Wilfred Ndidi and Calvin Bassey. The head coach will trim the list to a final 23-man squad ahead of the showdown against Rwanda and Zimbabwe. And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Umu Danyogo for the technical support. Do interact with us via social media platforms, X, Instagram at WADR English, and on Facebook, WADR English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is our flagship gender program in English, 50-50, with Nadiri Tete. Do join Demba Amar An at the top of the hour of 1 p.m. for the second edition of our comprehensive news in French and Fushifu. I'm Abdullahi Hassan. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, New Me FM 94.